Welcome to Community Health Briefs, where AI hosts share short, clear stories about research shaping healthier futures. Each episode highlights new work from members of the College for Community Health at Montclair State University, showing how ideas connect to the social and structural forces behind health. In short, this is research you can trust, explained by AI in minutes.
Welcome. Today we're looking at a really interesting study, one that explores how really difficult experiences, profound trauma even, can sometimes spark collective action.
Yeah, we're focusing specifically on Asian and Asian American college students during the COVID-19 pandemic.
And the research we're digging into comes from Dr. Se Kim, who's an assistant professor over at Montclair State University, and her colleagues.
That's right. Their work dives into that really intense spike in anti-Asian racism we saw during the pandemic. The sources mention, over 10,000 hate incidents reported just between March 2020 and September 2021.
Wow. And that figure, it's not just a number, is it? It represents real trauma, real pain, and it was directly tied to serious mental health issues, anxiety, depression, PTSD.
Exactly. So given that context, the researchers weren't just asking, how did they cope?
Right. It was more like, how do they maybe channel that pain into something productive, action?
Precisely. They wanted to understand, how did experiencing all this anti-Asian racism affect these students' views on activism and, their actual experiences with it?
So how did they figure that out?
They used focus group interviews. They spoke with 34 college students. Importantly, this included both domestic and international students to really capture what they went through during that first critical year, fall 2020 to spring 2021.
Okay, let's get into what they found. Because one of the first things that jumps out is that students didn't even really agree on what activism meant to them.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? There was this whole spectrum. Some students defined it in a more traditional sense, activists being out in the streets, protesting visibly.
Okay, the classic image.
Right. But then many others saw themselves more as advocates. Their actions were maybe more private or rooted in their own circles.
So things like educating people they know, maybe in their workplace or even within their own families.
Exactly that. Or making sure to vote for candidates who supported social justice, donating money to causes, that kind of thing. It wasn't always public facing.
It's like the situation kind of forced a broader definition of what engagement could look like.
It really did. It showed activism as more of a continuous process, not just one big event. And the main ways they engage, well, a lot happened online, sharing posts, supporting movements like #StopAsianHate.
Makes sense given the lockdowns, too.
For sure. And alongside that, there were these really important direct conversations, especially challenging family members who might have held different views. That came up quite a bit.
That takes courage. What was driving them to do all this?
Two big things emerged. First, this real sense of duty, like an obligation to fight social injustice. And second, and this is really powerful, a strong feeling of interracial solidarity, particularly with the Black Lives Matter movement.
So connecting the dots. Recognizing systemic racism as the bigger issue.
Yes, exactly. A sense that these struggles were interconnected. It was a kind of collective awakening.
But it wasn't easy. There were barriers, right?
Definitely. Some were practical, like the very real fear of catching COVID at an in-person protest.
Sure.
And also just frustration, feeling like some people were being, willfully ignorant about discrimination.
Yeah, that why bother? Feeling must have been tempting.
It must have. But the really critical barrier the study highlighted affected the international students specifically.
Right, because their situation is different legally.
Massively different. Many felt this deep sense of powerlessness. Their visa status meant that getting involved in visible activism, like a protest, could have actual legal consequences.
You mean like deportation? Or trouble with future visas or jobs?
Potentially, yes. That fear was real. It could impact their ability to stay in the U.S., finish their studies, build a future. So the risk for them wasn't just getting sick or arrested. It was potentially life-altering in terms of their legal status.
Wow. That's a huge structural barrier forcing them towards less visible forms of advocacy, maybe?
Exactly. So thinking about this, what does it mean for universities? What should they be doing?
Good question. What did the research suggest?
Well, the study points out that this kind of engagement, activism, or advocacy actually has positive outcomes for students, like strengthening their sense of identity.
So it's beneficial, despite the risks.
Yes. So institutions really need to step up. They need culturally responsive mental health services, ones that actually understand and address racial trauma.
Okay, that makes sense.
And crucially, they need support systems that bridge the gap between domestic and international students, specifically acknowledging the unique pressures and legal constraints international students face when it comes to civic engagement.
So really tailoring support.
Precisely.
Okay, so the big takeaway here for you listening seems to be that this shared experience of discrimination, as awful as it was, acted as a kind of racial awakening. It actually forged a new solidarity among Asian and Asian American students, crossing those lines between ethnicities and even nationalities.
And that engagement, whether it was protesting or advocating, wasn't just political. It became a vital way to cope with trauma, to build what the researchers call collective psychosocial resilience. It was about well-being.
Right. So it leaves us with a question, doesn't it?
It does. How can this newfound solidarity, this connection between diverse Asian student groups, domestic and international, each with their own unique challenges, how can that be nurtured and sustained?
Yeah, how can it be channeled into social change efforts that last, beyond the immediate crisis that sparked it?
Thanks for listening to Community Health Briefs. This podcast was created with the help of AI, verified by the paper's author, and does not necessarily reflect the views of the College for Community Health or Montclair State University. Thanks again for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode. Make sure to subscribe and check us out at www.montclair.edu/CCHL to learn more about us and the amazing work we're doing for community health.